The moment he signed the divorce papers on live television, he smirked, looked into the camera, and called his wife a financial burden. The audience laughed. But 30 seconds later, a black private helicopter landed outside the studio, and suddenly, nobody was laughing anymore. They thought she was weak. They thought she was broke. But they had no idea who she really was. This is Broken Then Powerful, where pain turns into power. Her name was Elena Brooks. 34 years old, quiet, elegant, soft-spoken, the kind of woman people overlooked because she never felt the need to prove herself. For 7 years, she stood beside her husband, Marcus Hale, one of America's loudest celebrity entrepreneurs. Marcus loved attention, cameras, headlines, luxury suits, viral interviews, and in every interview, Elena stood silently beside him. Not because she had nothing to say, but because she loved him enough to let him shine. That was her mistake, because over time, Marcus started believing the spotlight belonged only to him. He forgot who helped him build his empire, forgot who stayed awake beside him when his first business failed, forgot who sold her own jewelry to pay his debts, forgot who believed in him, before the world even knew his name. But success changes some people, and Marcus changed badly. At first, it was little things. He stopped introducing her at events, stopped holding her hand, started mocking her clothes, her silence, her simple lifestyle. Then came the insults. You don't understand business. You're lucky I take care of you. You'd be nothing without me. Every word cut deeper than the last. But Elena never fought back. She stayed silent, but not weak. Because pain teaches you things. It teaches you who people really are. And Marcus was slowly revealing everything. One night at a luxury dinner party in Beverly Hills, Marcus drank too much champagne and laughed with his rich friends. One of them asked, "So what exactly does Elena even do?" Marcus chuckled. "She spends my money quietly. Honestly, she's basically retired from life." The table exploded with laughter. Elena smiled politely, but under that table, her fingers trembled. Because nobody there knew the truth. They didn't know Elena came from a family that built one of the largest private aviation companies in Europe. They didn't know she owned shares worth millions. They didn't know her father left her a private investment empire before he died. And they definitely didn't know she deliberately chose a simple life because she valued love more than status. Marcus thought she was ordinary because she never acted powerful. That was his biggest mistake. Months passed. Marcus became crueler, more arrogant, more public. Every interview became another opportunity to humiliate her. She's too emotional. She doesn't understand ambition. She's not built for success. And every time, Elena stayed calm. Because sometimes silence is not weakness. Sometimes silence is someone watching carefully, before they walk away forever. Then came the invitation. A live television special called Celebrity Breakups: Truth Behind the Marriage. Millions would watch. Marcus accepted immediately. Of course he did. He loved cameras more than people. Elena almost declined. But then, for the first time in years, she looked at herself in the mirror and asked one painful question. How much more disrespect will I tolerate before I lose myself completely? That question changed everything. Because in that moment, something inside her woke up. The woman who sacrificed, the woman who stayed quiet, the woman who kept shrinking herself so others could feel bigger, was gone. The night of the interview arrived. Bright studio lights, luxury audience, millions watching from home. Marcus entered first with his usual confidence. Perfect smile, expensive watch, massive ego. Then Elena walked in. Simple black dress, minimal makeup, calm eyes, and somehow, she looked stronger than everyone in the room. The host smiled nervously. So Marcus, rumors say this marriage is ending because of financial disagreements. Marcus laughed immediately. Financial disagreements? That's one way to say it. The audience chuckled. Elena remained silent. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Look, let's be honest. I built my empire from nothing. I need a partner who matches my ambition. Then he looked directly at Elena. And unfortunately, she's just not on my level anymore. The audience gasped softly, but he wasn't finished. She's a good person, but love isn't enough when one person is carrying the entire relationship financially. That sentence hit Elena like ice, not because it hurt, but because after years of protecting him, he finally exposed himself completely, live, in front of the entire world. The host looked uncomfortable. Elena, do you want to respond? A long silence filled the studio. Elena looked down for a moment, then slowly raised her eyes and smiled. Not a hurt smile, not a broken smile, a peaceful smile. The kind people wear when they finally stop pretending. You're right, Marcus. The audience froze. Marcus smirked proudly. But then Elena continued. You did carry something. His smile widened. She looked directly into his eyes. You carried the spotlight. While I carried you. Silence. Heavy silence. Marcus blinked. For the first time all night. He looked nervous. Elena calmly reached into her purse and removed a thin folder. Inside were documents, contracts, ownership records, financial statements. She handed them to the host. The host's face changed instantly. Confusion turned into shock, then disbelief. Marcus frowned. What is this? Elena finally said the words she had buried for 7 years. The private aviation company you brag about flying with every month. She paused. I own 82% of it. The room exploded. Marcus laughed nervously. What? But Elena wasn't done. The investment firm that funded your second startup when every bank rejected you? She tilted her head slightly. That was my money too. Marcus's face lost all color. The audience was completely silent now. No laughter, no whispers, only shock. And then, the loud sound of helicopter blades thundered outside the studio. Everyone turned. The cameras rushed toward the glass windows. A sleek black helicopter slowly descended onto the rooftop landing pad nearby. The side of the aircraft carried a silver logo. Brooks Aviation International. Elena stood calmly. That's mine. Marcus stared at her like he'd never seen her before. Because he hadn't. Not really. He only saw what benefited his ego. He never saw her sacrifices, her intelligence, her quiet power. And now, the whole world saw it before he did. The host whispered, Why didn't you ever tell him? Elena looked toward the audience, then answered softly, Because I wanted to be loved for who I was, not for what I owned. That sentence hit harder than anything else that night. Even Marcus looked shattered. But they didn't know the deepest part yet. Elena took one slow breath. I stayed through disrespect because I believed love could heal pride. Her eyes turned toward Marcus again. But pride only grows when silence protects it. Marcus tried speaking. Elena, no. For the first time in years. She interrupted him, and her voice remained calm. You didn't lose me tonight because I became successful. She stepped closer. You lost me because you only valued success when you thought it belonged to you. The audience erupted into applause, not for revenge, not for wealth, but because every person there recognized that feeling, the pain of being underestimated, the exhaustion of loving someone who only sees your value after you're gone. Marcus sat frozen. The same man who mocked her publicly now looked painfully small, and Elena, she looked free. She walked toward the exit slowly, gracefully, powerfully. The studio doors opened. Wind from the helicopter swept through the hallway behind her. And before stepping out, she turned one final time. Not angry, not bitter, just honest. Never humiliate someone who stayed loyal during your worst days. Because one day, you may realize they were the greatest blessing you ever had. Then she walked away. The helicopter doors closed, and seconds later, she disappeared into the night sky, leaving behind a studio full of silence, and one man forced to live with the consequences of his arrogance. But the real lesson of this story isn't about money. It's not about revenge, and it's definitely not about humiliation. It's about value. Some people only respect loud success, luxury, status, attention. But real power is quiet. It's the person who sacrifices without complaining. The person who supports you when nobody else believes in you. The person who stays kind, even after being hurt. And sometimes, the strongest people look the weakest because they never needed the world's approval to know their worth. Never underestimate quiet people. Never mock humble people. And never confuse silence with weakness. Because some people stay quiet not because they have nothing, but because they know exactly who they are. Subscribe to Broken Then Powerful for more stories like this. And remember, the people you overlook today may be the ones the world admires tomorrow.